Let me tell you something I think a lot more women need to understand. Some men are not actually upset because they lost you. They're upset because they can't waste your time no more. They lost access to your time, attention, body. They lost that access to your emotional support, companionship, your domestic labor, your nurturing, and your availability. And what really pisses some of them off is when you stop giving all of that to them for free while they give you absolutely nothing concrete in return. Because there's a difference between a man who genuinely wants to build a life with you and a man who just wants you available while he figures out what he wants to do with his life. And a lot of men are the latter. And ladies, I need you to understand you're not obligated to sit around and be somebody's placeholder. You don't have to wait for him to decide if he wants marriage. You don't have to wait for him to become financially stable. You don't have to put your life on pause because he says one day. You don't have to stop buying your own house because you're waiting for a man who may or may not come along and buy one with you. You don't have to organize your entire life around the possibility that someday this man might decide you're worth committing to. Because while you're waiting on him to make a decision, your life is still happening and time is passing you by. And I think this is where women have to start looking at relationships differently. The decades of history that we have seen, it's showed us what we need to do. Because wasting a woman's time isn't always some man intentionally sitting there thinking, let me waste her next 5 years. Sometimes it looks like keeping her in a relationship that benefits him while avoiding the conversations and decisions that would determine whether the relationship actually benefits her, whether the relationship is going to move forward. He wants the girlfriend, he wants the companionship, he definitely wants the sex. He wants somebody to listen to his problems. He wants somebody to cook. He wants somebody to clean. He wants somebody to help organize his life. He wants somebody who remembers his appointments, his family birthdays, his favorite foods, his work schedule, his problems, his goals. He wants somebody there when he's lonely. He wants somebody cheering for him. He wants somebody who believes in him. But then when you say, okay, where is this going? Suddenly you're doing too much. You're rushing him. You're asking for too much. You're putting pressure on him. You're giving him he feels like it's an ultimatum. Suddenly marriage is just a piece of paper. Suddenly you need to let things happen naturally. And meanwhile, he's perfectly comfortable letting you continue providing all of the benefits of a committed relationship while keeping the actual commitment vague. That's the part women need to stop participating in. Because if a man genuinely doesn't know what he wants, okay, so be it. But you don't have to sit there and wait for him to figure it out. You can figure out what you want and move accordingly. And that's what seems to make certain men so angry. Because a woman who has decided she isn't waiting changes the entire dynamic. She says, I'm buying my house, I'm building my career, I am traveling, I'm saving my money, I'm having my children according to my timeline. I'm going back to school, I'm moving, I'm building my business, I'm creating a life that doesn't require a man to arrive before it can begin. And now suddenly he realizes that you're no longer sitting there waiting for him to become the center of your future. And that's where the entitlement comes in because patriarchy has historically taught women that their lives are supposed to be organized around men. Get a husband, build a home with him, have his children, take care of him, support his dreams, make his house a home. Keep yourself desirable. Be patient, be understanding, wait for him. And what happens when a woman says, actually, I'm going to start building my life right now? They can't handle it because that woman is no longer operating from the assumption that male partnership is the prize at the end of her life. And let's talk about access to women's bodies too. Because some men genuinely act offended when a woman stops giving them sexual access simply because they want it. But your body is not a reward for male attention. Your body is not something he becomes entitled to because he took you on 3 dates. It damn sure isn't something he gets to keep accessing indefinitely because you've been in a relationship for 5 years. If you want continued access to me, then there needs to be continued reciprocity. And reciprocity doesn't necessarily mean money. It means effort, consistency, respect, intentionality. It means commitment when commitment is what I want. It means marriage because, yes, marriage might be just a piece of paper to you, but if we together for 10 years and then something happens to you, I get those benefits for sitting here wasting my time with you. Because if we're not married now, I'm really wasting my time. Actually contributing to my life instead of just consuming from it. Because there is a huge difference between a man who wants to love you and a man who wants to use your availability. And women are starting to recognize that difference. You see it all over women's conversations online. Women are talking about being in a relationship for years while marriage remains permanently someday. Women are talking about buying homes together, having children together, building entire lives together, while the man still refuses to give clarity about the future. And then there are women realizing, wait a minute now, why am I building a life around a man who hasn't even decided whether he wants to build a life with me? Whether he wants to be committed to me? That's the question. Because sometimes the biggest form of self respect isn't leaving because a man is terrible. Sometimes it's leaving because the relationship simply isn't taking you where you said you wanted to go. And you're not going to let a man gaslight and manipulate you into staying in that relationship that's not taking you where you want to go. And that's okay. You don't need a courtroom case against him. You don't need him to be abusive. You don't need him to cheat. You don't need him to be a horrible person. If you want marriage and he doesn't know if he ever wants marriage, that is enough to leave. If you want children and he keeps saying maybe someday, that is enough to leave. They always talking about we got a biological clock anyway, which studies have shown that it's them and not us, but we're going to get on that in another video. If you want to build a home and he's perfectly comfortable dating indefinitely, that's enough for you to leave. If you want a committed partnership and he's happy receiving all the benefits while keeping you in limbo, that's enough. You are allowed to leave. And here's another thing I really want women to understand. You don't have to punish a man to stop letting him waste your time. You don't have to become bitter or cold. You don't have to play games. You don't have to manipulate him into proposing. You simply stop volunteering for a situation that doesn't work for you, because your time is going to pass whether you're in that relationship or not. Your 20s are going to pass. Your 30s are going to pass. And men, for some reason, love to waste a woman's 20s and her 30s. They just love to waste a woman's time, period. Your fertility timeline, if children are something you want, is going to pass, especially according to men. They love to say how you're going to hit that wall. Your earning years are going to pass. Now, that is something I am serious about, because while you're young and got that fire and got that energy, you need to be out here getting it. Your opportunities are going to pass. Your life is not waiting for somebody else to make a decision. And I think women are finally realizing that being single with a life you love is going to be a hell of a lot better than being partnered while waiting for your actual life to begin. That's why women leaving relationships create such a reaction, because the man isn't just losing a girlfriend. He's losing what was promised to him from the patriarchy. Sometimes he's losing the infrastructure she provided around his life. And now he has to cook for himself. He has to clean for himself. That's why some of them get into a relationship so quick. They get into one like that. He has to manage himself now, comfort himself, plan his own life, find his own companionship. And suddenly he's realizing that the woman he thought was just sitting there was actually doing a whole lot. He didn't see that invisible labor. That's why I need women to stop underestimating the value of their presence. Your absence can reveal your contribution. You need to get out. I don't care. Pull yourself up by the bootstraps and walk yourself out the door. And you don't have to stay just so somebody else can appreciate you after you leave. So, ladies, please stop waiting for somebody to choose you while you're actively choosing them every single day. Stop putting your life on hold. Stop postponing your goals. Stop refusing to buy the house you want because you're waiting for a hypothetical husband that probably never gonna come around. Stop shrinking your plans because a man might eventually come along. Stop giving unlimited access to a man who is offering you unlimited uncertainty. And most importantly, stop confusing being wanted with being valued. A man can want your attention and still not be willing to build with you. He can want your body and still not respect your boundaries. He can want your companionship and still not want commitment. He can want you around and still have no intention of making you his wife. He just wants to get through life with you so you can make his life easier. So don't just ask yourself, does he want me? You need to be asking, what is his presence actually adding to my life? Because if a man is only taking your time, your energy, your attention, your body, and your labor, if he's only taking your peace and you're constantly waiting for him to finally give something back, baby, that's not a partnership. That's a pattern. That's a placeholder. And you are not put on this earth to sit in somebody else's waiting room. You need to build your life. You need to buy your house if that's what you want. You need to make your money. Make your money. I cannot stress this enough. You need to make your money. Take your trips. Protect your peace. Create your home. Love your friends and invest in yourself. And if a man comes along who genuinely wants to build with you, that is beautiful. But don't stop living because you're waiting for him to arrive. Because the right man should be coming into a life that is already moving, baby. You got them parts going. He should not be the reason your life finally starts. This is Pretty Girl Rich Era, where we heal, level up, and become the best version of ourselves. As I always say, I'm going to see you in the next one. Bye, loves.